For decades, the default setting for Canada's economic relationship with the United States has been, well, let's call it carefully calibrated caution.
That's a good way to put it. It was about sidestepping conflict, managing expectations.
And basically just hoping that whatever political storm was brewing south of the border would, just pass over.
Exactly. It was the geopolitical equivalent of walking on eggshells. Treating that volatility as a short-term problem, you just had to wait out. But the deep dive we're taking today suggests that entire approach is fundamentally and definitively over.
Right.
We're looking at this highly assertive, unapologetic new strategy from Foreign Minister Melanie Joly, a true outward-looking approach.
And the mission here is crystal clear for you, the listener. It's about reducing Canada's structural vulnerability to U.S. political volatility. They're making a move to secure their national economic interest.
Especially as they look ahead toward what could be a very challenging and unpredictable U.S. administration.
So the sources we're digging into, they're mostly from an analysis of a recent interview transcript, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they highlight something crucial.
They do. It's the shift in tone. Joly is firm, she's clear, and she speaks with a confidence that just signals a profound policy change.
And the core tension here is this perception that the U.S. wants Canada in a position of economic dependence.
Wants to dictate the rules, essentially. And Joly's message, which really permeates this whole strategy, is that Canada refuses to be paralyzed. They are not waiting for Washington's permission to decide their own economic future. That era is over.
She has definitely shifted the trajectory. I mean, this isn't just day-to-day diplomacy. It's about setting hard boundaries, securing the national interest.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the first part of this pivot.
Redefining engagement.
Exactly. Moving from what quiet appeals to firm boundary setting.
The change in posture is genuinely remarkable. She didn't sound defensive. She didn't sound uncertain, which is often the diplomatic default when you're dealing with a massive neighbor.
Right.
Instead, she projects what the sources describe as calm confidence. When faced with those harsh, unpredictable, sometimes threatening signals from potential U.S. political teams, Canada is responding not with retreat, but with a practical, firm stand.
Anchored in defending actual jobs and industries.
Tangible jobs. And this is where the strategy gets incredibly specific. The auto sector is a perfect case study.
Okay, so let's get into that. The U.S. Commerce Secretary made some dismissive remarks, suggesting Washington would only buy a few components from Canada, essentially trying to marginalize their role.
And Joly didn't flinch. And that non-reaction, that commitment to a proactive defense, is just central to this new mindset. Her core public statement was totally unambiguous. She said, "We will protect every single job in the auto sector."
Which is not an empty slogan.
No, not at all. It was a clear commitment that Ottawa is prepared to use every available tool, legal, diplomatic, economic, to defend a cornerstone of their economy.
And the sources really stress this difference in approach. In the past, discussions with Washington might have involved, pleading or making concessions.
Absolutely. But now, Joly stressed her government goes to Washington to defend the legitimate interests of Canadian workers, not, and this is a direct quote, not to beg for scraps.
And that's not just talk. This mindset shift is translating into immediate action, right?
That's right. Immediate job protection efforts. The sources point to specific tariff sectors that Canada is actively defending right now. We're talking steel, aluminum, copper.
All the critical supply chains.
And of course, automotive manufacturing and lumber. These are the immediate battlegrounds where Canada is drawing a line.
So that covers let's call it the immediate firefighting, defending what's already there. But the sources suggest they're doing a lot more than just putting out spot fires.
Oh, much more. They're actively changing the landscape.
Which leads us to maybe their most strategic move yet. The automotive pivot. We're calling it the Japan strategy.
Yeah.
They're looking past Washington, broadening their outlook toward Asia and Europe.
This is where the long-term strategic thinking really, really shines. You have to understand the critical detail here, the why behind this move.
Go on.
More than 60% of all car making in Canada is done by Japanese automakers. Specifically, Toyota and Honda.
60%. Okay, that's a huge number.
It's massive. And it means if Canada's auto future relies solely on Washington's goodwill, Those jobs are perpetually at risk from political instability or changing tax credits or protections rules.
So instead of lobbying the U.S. Congress, they're taking a much more direct path.
Straight to Tokyo. Joly announced her plan to go to Japan and engage directly with the global CEOs of Honda and Toyota.
And this isn't just a courtesy call, I assume.
No, the goal is to discuss new, deeper forms of cooperation in the auto sector. It's a brilliant counter-strategy. If the U.S. tries to narrow its doors, Canada is simultaneously opening entirely new supply chain avenues with powerful, dependable global partners.
Okay, but walk us through the risk here. I mean, this sounds great in theory, but wouldn't the U.S. just retaliate with other barriers if Canada tries to reduce American influence in a key sector like auto?
That's the core challenge, but it's also the genius of the move. This isn't being achieved through, heated rhetoric or public fights.
It's being done quietly.
It's being done through substantive agreements, through long-term investment incentives, by striking deals on future supply chains like battery components, EV manufacturing, automation tech with Tokyo. Canada is making structural, almost irreversible changes.
So the agreements are designed to gradually make the U.S. role just less central.
Less central over the long term. It's about making the Canadian auto sector indispensable to global supply chains that span Asia, not just North America.
I see. And if these talks lead to significant new investment, new plants, new R&D?
The impact is twofold. First, you diversify the risk away from U.S. political cycles. But second, it goes way beyond just preserving existing jobs. Canada could create entirely new, high-value employment and really solidify its domestic industrial base.
By focusing on the next generation of technology.
Exactly. This is what long-term strategic thinking looks like. It's taking control and refusing to let political whims from a single neighbor dictate your entire economic future.
That proactive approach leads us perfectly into the biggest topic of this deep dive. The strategic pivot to build a whole new foundation. The roadmap to autonomy.
Right. This is Joly and economic leaders like Mark Carney working to build a new industrial foundation for Canada that is not only modern and equitable, but most importantly, structurally less exposed to U.S. volatility.
So this is about self-determination in infrastructure and industry.
It's about building things that genuinely belong to Canadians, that are manufactured and controlled at home. The sources gave a really interesting anecdote here. When Joly was asked about the Keystone Pipeline,
A favorite distraction project.
right, she just brushed it aside. The priority is emphatically not pipelines that deepen dependence on the U.S. market. The priority is building modern, autonomous industries.
Okay, so that sets the stage for the first of what the sources identify as three strategic pillars. The first one is self-reliance in the strategic sectors, starting with critical minerals.
A massive area of focus. And these minerals, they're not just rocks in the ground. They are the fundamental backbone of electric vehicles, of modern defense, of the global energy transition.
And Canada has a huge geological advantage there. But historically, they've often just shipped the raw materials south or overseas for processing.
And what Joly is proposing is a full inversion of the logic of dependence.
Let's unpack that phrase. What does inverting the logic actually mean for the average Canadian worker?
It means breaking that cycle of exporting raw materials only to import back high-value, finished goods. Inverting it means Canada commits to attracting the capital to not just extract, but to refine and lead in those clean tech supply chains, all domestically.
So keeping the high-value manufacturing and engineering jobs at home?
Exactly. It's Canada proactively investing in battery component plants, in processing facilities, in research, instead of waiting for global players to decide where their next plant goes.
And we're already seeing tangible results of this build-out in strategic energy and infrastructure projects.
Yes, the sources point to several major domestic projects as evidence. The focus is on energy security and trade logistics.
Such as?
Well, you have the green light for the second phase of that massive LNG project in British Columbia. You also see big upgrades to the Port of Montreal, which boosts global trade capacity outside of U.S. routes.
And then there's the nuclear project in Ontario, the Darlington Small Modular Reactor.
The SMR project, yes, that's a crucial piece.
Okay, for listeners who may not be nuclear specialists, can you just briefly explain what a small modular reactor is and why it's so important in a discussion about economic autonomy?
Certainly. SMRs are advanced nuclear reactors. They're much smaller than traditional plants, designed to be built in factories and then transported to sites.
So they're more flexible.
Very flexible. And they're strategic because they offer reliable, scalable, baseload, clean energy. They allow Canada to decarbonize its grid rapidly, providing a competitive energy source for all those new critical mineral refining plants and EV battery factories we were just talking about.
I see. It's the essential infrastructure
Yeah.
to make sure the whole new industrial ecosystem actually has the power it needs to run.
It's the engine.
Okay, moving to the second pillar, which really addresses geopolitical risk head-on, the new defense industrial strategy. Now, we know Canada is increasing domestic defense spending by billions, a move that's often framed as just trying to appease U.S. political figures.
Yeah, the ones who claim NATO allies owe them money, the sources strongly refute that framing.
So what's the real reason, according to the analysis?
Joly and the government are clear. Canada is boosting its defense spending for an entirely self-interested, rational reason. The global environment demands serious preparation, and her observation is powerful. Allies are not always reliable.
This is about national security in an unpredictable world, then, not appeasement.
That's the fundamental shift in perception, acknowledging that real security requires national investment first.
But how does this link back to economic autonomy and the Canadian worker?
It connects directly through job creation and industrial capacity. The billions of dollars being allocated are specifically directed toward creating domestic production capacity.
Meaning the money stays in Canada.
It means those funds are going to employ Canadian welders, engineers, scientists, and architects building ships, vehicles, and technology in Canada, rather than just feeding massive contracts to American or European defense manufacturers.
It's infrastructure spending disguised as defense spending.
In a way, yes. And they've put hard numbers on this commitment.
Right. What are they?
They're aiming to reach defense spending equivalent to 2% of GDP by the end of this year, with an extra $9 billion in funding earmarked specifically for the domestic defense sector.
So it's about building the strength and self-sufficiency to stand on their own, regardless of the political climate in Washington.
Or anywhere else.
Which brings us to the third and final pillar, which is essential to make this all work. Stability and attracting global investment. Foreign direct investment.
Precisely. If you're going to diversify away from your closest neighbor, you have to be very attractive to everyone else. The strategy involves concerted efforts to cut red tape and ensure stability and regulation. For an investor in Tokyo or Berlin, that political stability is arguably more important than short-term tax breaks.
And that stability pitch, it seems to be working. The sources highlight some pretty significant tangible results from just last year.
They do. They mentioned $60 billion worth of private investment in just 5 major projects, all announced in a single month, September.
Wow. $60 billion.
That figure is powerful evidence that Canada's investment climate, its stable democracy, its predictable legal system, is a massive competitive advantage, especially when you contrast it with the political unpredictability you see elsewhere.
It really sounds like Joly is presenting a picture of the world that isn't sugar-coated at all.
No, she doesn't use idealistic language. She acknowledges it's unpredictable and fiercely competitive. She recognizes the risks, including pressure and coercion from powerful nations. But the overriding message is one of control and agency.
The message is that Canada is in control of its own future.
Yes. The plan is grounded in real capacity and self-reliance, which is a stark contrast to just reacting to external threats.
So if we synthesize this whole deep dive, we started with this tension between interdependence, the reality of being neighbors, and submission, which is the risk of being structurally dependent.
And the strategy makes this powerful argument that the two are not mutually exclusive. Interdependence does not require submission.
So Canada can keep trading with the U.S.
That's the undeniable reality. But at the same time, they can expand new, resilient partnerships with nations like Japan, which is entirely within Canada's capacity and self-interest.
It really sounds like Canada has just fundamentally stopped reacting defensively. They're now methodically dismantling a long-term dependency by proactively building their own foundation.
A foundation built on their inherent strengths, resources, political stability, and a highly skilled workforce. And importantly, this isn't just theory, Joly grounds the strategy in positive economic momentum.
Citing actual data.
Yeah, concrete data. 60,000 new jobs created in a single month, a robust 3.3% wage increase year over year. It shows the economy is generating real results even under pressure. The strategy is working.
Okay, here's a final provocative thought for you, our listener, to consider as you watch these global trade dynamics shift. The sources position this whole effort, The huge investments in critical minerals, the pivot to Japan, the clean energy and defense build-out as a roadmap to economy that's explicitly designed to withstand political cycles beyond any single administration.
A durable independence.
Exactly. So given this calculated, active pursuit of durable independence from the U.S., how might this fundamentally change Canada's long-term influence, not just in North America, but within the G7 and in global supply chain dynamics?
That is the essential question, isn't it? If this is successful, this shift transforms Canada from a predictable junior regional partner into a genuinely necessary, resilient global supplier in high-value strategic sectors.
Like batteries, clean energy, and defense tech.
Right. The implication is that Canada becomes a rule maker and an anchor of stability rather than just a rule taker.